I am dyslexic. So the
Mm.
struggle for me was, I never thought I was going to write a book. Like I barely read books. I listened to a lot of audiobooks, right? And so that was a struggle for me. And so to get around that, I actually did a lot of voice to text to make sure that, I wasn't sitting there typing and rewriting or whatnot. I was able to have a conversation with myself in the book essentially and be able to go through. So that's kind of where my struggle came, is like creating it so that not only did it feel like my own words, which helps with the voice to text, but that people could relate to it as well.
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage. So, growing older is a privilege, but let's be real, the logistics of aging can be a struggle for seniors and family caregivers alike. If you find yourself drowning in the details of home care, retirement living, dementia, well, you're in the right place for today's episode. We're going to be talking with the author, Amy Friesen, an award winning entrepreneur who dubbed Canada's eldercare maestro. Her new book, Breadcrumbs, is a lifeline for anyone fumbling through the labyrinth of senior care. With equal parts practical advice and heartfelt storytelling, Amy's mapping out a journey from stressed to blessed in the realm of eldercare. So we're going to talk all about that today, and also some writing tips to go along with it. So Amy, welcome to our show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation. Of course, this is it's just an important conversation, and you really have done so much in this field. So I think everybody's going to have a tremendous amount to learn from you today. But to learn a little bit about you, I'm just curious to know, what inspired you to dedicate your career to improving the lives of seniors and their families?
Sure. Well, I've been in this industry for 20 years at this point, and I started in marketing and retirement living for a good almost 10. And I was just finding that more and more families were coming to our doors thinking we were a solution. And sometimes we were, and sometimes we weren't. But one thing was very common was the sheer confusion over what retirement living offered. What is a long-term care home? Is there enough care? Do I have enough budget? All of these things. And so I decided to form a business in the community to serve these folks called Tea and Toast. And then um, we're almost 12 at this point. And so throughout the years, I've really wanted to put a lot of education out into the world because there's very little education around elder care. People don't like to talk about it. Less education in Canada versus the US. So, really trying to get these conversations started.
Yeah, well, that's just really inspiring. And it sounds like you've been really trailblazing. I mean, you mentioned you have, one program already started, but also Tea and Toast is another one where you offer kind of solutions there. Is that correct?
Yes, so Tea and Toast is my day job. So it's a
Okay.
company I run, and we offer elder care solutions, whether it's planning or for navigating the retirement or long-term care homes as well. So I'm very much entrenched in this world.
Understood. Yeah, well, it's that's great to know. So guys, if you enjoy this podcast today and you like the book too, well, you can check out Tea and Toast also to kind of find more resources. But yeah, I mean, before we go that far, I guess it's time for us to chat a little bit about the book. I mean, it's a huge theme of it is empowering families with knowledge to confidently navigate elder care. So, what would you say is like one of the most common misconceptions that you dispel in your book?
I would tell you it's very surprising every time I speak in the community, every phone call we get. Basic terminology of elder care and care is really unknown. What's a long-term care home? How does it differ from retirement? What's a two-person assist? Do I need that? And so, really just navigating the whole healthcare system as a whole, because the terminology can be really complicated and convoluted. One thing can be called assisted living, but another home or another service might also be called assisted living, but they could be completely different of the offering. So really try to baseline it for people so they have a base amount of information so that they can really start to get through the weeds. And I find that, those questions are kind of our top questions always.
Yeah, I mean, I'm confused myself, actually. I mean, even the name of your book, From Home Care to Care Homes, it feels like a
Mhm.
tongue twister a little bit. So I guess, we don't want to get too into the definitions, being that I'm sure it's also laid out in the book, but maybe like a sneak peek, like what's like, two of the most common like confusions people seem to get out of that? What would you say?
So I would say, like, for the confusions that people are having in general.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess terminology necessarily is what I was just riffing off of what you just mentioned about how people don't actually know the vocabulary. Um,
Yeah.
maybe just like one quick tip, like something for us to, take home today. Like now we know, like this is what it means. What would you say necessarily?
For sure. One of the biggest things for terminology purposes that we get are people that have physical ailments, right? Like things like Parkinson's and MS and things like that. That if they stay in the retirement home industry, which is the private industry in Canada, US also has, retirement homes, assisted living homes, and whatnot. It's really about finding homes that if they don't want to make a move and they want a full continuum of care, what is a full continuum? It means that you can stay there and they can provide the care at different levels. For people with Parkinson's and MS, like physical things, it's really important to look for what's called a two-person transfer, meaning it takes two people to physically help you out of chairs and whatnot. And so that's one of those things that gets really confusing for people, because a lot of retirement homes, to be honest, a lot of them say, "Oh yes, we can do it all," and then there's usually some holes depending, so you have to ask the right questions.
Right, exactly. I can only imagine. And that kind of goes directly into one of the most important themes of the book, the importance of, um, what do we call it? Productive rather than reactive care.
Mhm.
Is that the correct word? Proactive, right?
Proactive.
I at least I read that wrong in my notes. So yeah, I mean, the idea of knowing what's going to happen rather than reacting to situations. Would you like to speak a little bit on that for us? It seems to be a very overarching theme.
Sure. Yeah. Planning is so important. If the folks that plan, the families that plan have better communication, they lay out things the wishes of, the seniors in this aspect are wanting. And they're really in this process where as things change, they flex, right? Everybody grows and moves as care levels change, as, budgets change and things like that. And so the other side of the coin is just doing nothing, right? And waiting for a crisis, ending up in hospital, and then having all of the choices and selection taken away from you, really, because it's limited on what you can do. And so having that proactive plan, seems like this huge mountain. And don't get me wrong, it can be. But I've often seen the other side of the coin, and it's way worse. It's
Right.
way harder on families, right? And so if people can get through the proactivity and planning, even piece by piece, consistently, they're going to be in a much better place than if they just stick their head in the sand or they don't do anything and crisis happens and then they have to react because, as you can guess, once a senior or a loved one or a parent is in a crisis, all the caregivers, a lot of the family, everybody's in that crisis with them, right? Jobs go to the side, families go to the sides, all the things. And so it's very far reaching when there's a crisis there.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of interesting. You think about, having a plan to, take a child to college, or a plan for even just like an emergency evacuation or something like that. But like, why not have a plan for like what when the unexpected happens with your loved ones who
Mhm.
are on the older side, right? So that's so important to have. Maybe that's something everybody should take away from this episode, if nothing else. Maybe talk to your parents about what would you want to do if something happened. What would be like the first step to get that started, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. Yeah, I think that that open communication really is what it's about. And I often coach families to be on the same page before they approach their senior loved one. So there's often multiple siblings, or multiple family members. If there's only one, then it's not nearly as difficult. But when you get multiple personalities and multiple perspectives, it's really important that people get on the same page with whoever is going to be involved and then
Mm-hmm.
present the united front to their loved one so that when you're in the conversation, you don't have three people saying, yes, you should do this, or you should get care, or you should move, and then one random person saying, no, you're fine. Because if you have that situation and the loved one, the senior does not want to move, they're going to say, "Oh no, so and so says I'm fine," and they kind of just like whitewash the rest of it. And
Right.
so that's super important.
Understood. So good communication, being on the same page with all family members, important stuff. Because there's a lot of different perspectives, I'm sure, and there's definitely many different avenues as well. I mean, you mentioned that yourself. There's so many different terms, the different types of care in itself. So there's a lot to think about. That being said, this is a good time for us to transition into the writing process of your book because, well, there's so much to talk about for this topic. How did you select and choose which ones to include in your book?
I have a sticky note method that I picked up. And
Mhm.
so I wrote down what I thought were important themes or important pieces all on a bunch of sticky notes and put them on the wall. And then I was able to really align what kind of fit with each other. So that really helped because I'm very visual. And so I was able to, define it the chapters that way and be able to add if I needed to, missing a piece here or whatnot. And so that very much helped me kind of focus in on what I really needed to talk about. And we get a lot of feedback from community about, our other resources as well. And so, what are the common questions, just like what you're asking, right? What are the common questions that come through? Okay, let's address those as a base and then build.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so I think that's really important, and I like the sticky note method. Just to kind of go back to that, it's cool how people have different methods. Some people like the computer, their phone. Some people physically write it down, like the sticky notes. So, yeah, that's really important to think about too. Um, the crazy thing is that this is such a sensitive topic, so it has to require a lot of like sensitivity, but also thoughtfulness and clarity when you're writing about it. Do you have a specific strategy when you were doing that as you were writing? Like, what was your decision process for getting the content across clearly without being, I guess, not to say offensive, but like, too swaying from one side or another? What's your method for making it very clear to the audience, just getting the facts straight? That's kind of what it seems like you do in your book.
Yeah, I think that my general communication style is kind of open, airy. It's more important to say, we need to have these conversations or other pieces of the book and be very straightforward and direct. I always say I'm very straightforward and direct, but I'm very nice, right? So it's like, here's the problem I'm seeing. Here's some, other people that we've helped having this problem so that people can get the direct information from me, but then they can see in people's stories, which are throughout the book, that they're not alone. People are handling the same types of stuff that they are. And so they can see sort of how those things played out as well. It's the same thing we do with our clients when they call, we tend to get very similar cases. And so we can always reassure them, this is not new to us. We've seen this quite a bit, and these are the ways that we can problem solve it. So that's kind of how I wrote, to be clear, but also to be compassionate and show them. Like at the first of my book, I'm very adamant. Caregivers, you're not alone, and other people are having these issues. Other people are going through this, and really just making sure that people, as they're reading the book, understand that it's not a singular issue. It's not a singular problem. It's all of us. We're all doing it.
Understood. Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying before about like, family members need to be on the same side, right? It's a team effort. Everyone has to get aligned with it. So very important stuff. Very powerful too. Um, I like this a lot. As we are talking about the writing tips, then I guess kind of like one last question in that regard. What about struggles? Do you find any certain topic, more challenging to write about than others?
I think that the topics I don't find necessarily challenging because I've been doing it for so long, but I am dyslexic. So the
Mm.
struggle for me was, I never thought I was going to write a book. Like I barely read books. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, right? And so that was a struggle for me. And so to get around that, I actually did a lot of voice to text, and to make sure that I wasn't sitting there typing and rewriting or whatnot. I was able to have a conversation with myself in the book essentially and be able to go through. So that's kind of where my struggle came, is like creating it so that not only did it feel like my own words, which helps with the voice to text, but that people could relate to it as well.
Right, exactly. And I guess that's right. Like, how do you create that relativity? That's a struggle that we all work through, but that's a great tip to, reach that point. Now that you have all of this out in the world, though, what's the next? Have you considered writing additional books, or what's next on the agenda for you?
I apparently like writing. I didn't know I would like writing, and so I have a number of different books actually in the back, working through my brain and pieces here and there. And I'm actually going to be diving into children's books,
Okay.
um, because I have a 7-year-old, and if we thought there wasn't enough information out there for people that are navigating elder care, there's certainly not enough information out there for children navigating grandma's dementia, or why does my grandpa have to move into a long-term care home, or changes, right? And getting that communication style out that I can equally use with my daughter, to better help the parents out there, because there's a lot of people in the sandwich generation, they're dealing with kind of both sides. And so I'm hoping these children's books will help.
Absolutely. And I've worked as a teacher as well. I know what it's like to have, want to talk about a certain topic with them, and there's not really a resource or a book for it. So I'm great that you're kind of thinking about, getting into that space. Is this something that's already released or something you're working on, just to clarify?
I'm working on. It's
You are
still
working.
not really it's not released yet, but I'm still working on it. Yeah, just to get all of the illustrations and stuff together.
Yeah, that can be a process. I can only imagine. Well, you have like so many different avenues I'd love to explore more. Like I'd love to explore more about like the dyslexia aspect, more about the illustrator versus writer aspect. But unfortunately, we do have to start coming to a close. But we'd love to have you back on to chat about any of that in the future. You have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experiences that people can learn from. So I do appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'd love to come back.
Of course, yeah. Well, we'll stay tuned for that, everybody. And in the meantime, you can check out Breadcrumbs from Home Care to Care Homes. It's just a a great resource for leading families through the rocky terrain of caregiving. Now, Amy, I'm wondering, are there any links that people should head to connect it and find out more about you?
Sure, yeah, amyfriesen.com. You can find pretty much anything there, and it'll direct you to book links. It'll direct you to my Ottawa-based Tea and Toast, as well as our national group called Eldercare Planners, which are companies like mine that we've kind of banded together. So if people are looking, it's there.
Okay, well, great. We're going to put the link in the description box of this podcast today. So, guys, click on over, get in the know. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure, Amy. I hope you have a great rest of the day. And to our audience out there, remember, just keep writing, keep leading, and keep inspiring. We'll see you next time on the Authors on Mission podcast. That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.